All right, great. All right, everyone. Welcome to our Baltimore City Recycling Everything You Need to Know. We're so glad that you could join us here today. I will give you a little brief rundown of what we're going to do here today. Next slide. So I am Bonnie Sorak. I am the Interim One Water Partnership Director with Interfaith Partners for the Chesapeake. I think many of you know me. So just really briefly, Interfaith Partners for the Chesapeake is a nonprofit organization. We work as a translator and connector for congregations, people of faith, to the local governments and our environmental partners. And that's how we came to be here today. So our One Water Partnership Program, just want to briefly let you know what that is. If you know folks in any of these areas, we're building networks of congregations that focus on environmental issues. So this program is offered through our One Water Partnership Program. You don't have to be a person of faith to be here, so I just wanted to make that clear. So this is open for anyone, and you are welcome to be here with us today. So our One Water Partnership is, as I said, a network of congregations, and Elevation Ministries is one of our wonderful congregations that's part of the network. And this whole workshop came up as a result of a program that they are doing with their congregation. And I'm going to introduce, let me pull that up, Pastor Melanie Wells, who's with Elevation Ministries. She's an executive and community advocate and entrepreneur with more than 20 years of experience in the public health and nonprofit sectors. During her career, she has served medically vulnerable communities in North Carolina, Florida, and the District of Columbia, and Maryland. She also serves as the pastor of Elevation Ministries with her husband, Michael Wells. Their church has recently started a green team to help encourage their congregation to appreciate and protect our natural resources. Melanie attended the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and has a Bachelor of Science degree in chemistry. She also has a Master of Public Health in Health Policy and Management with a concentration in Healthcare Organization and Management from the University of South Florida. Melanie resides in Baltimore with her husband, Michael, and their Black Lab, Bella. So I want to turn it over to Pastor Melanie to just say a few words on how we came to be here today, and then we will turn it over to our friends from Baltimore City.
Great. Thank you so much, Bonnie, for the introduction and for your help in pulling together today's activity. I won't share much. Our church recently started a green team, or an effort really to increase the knowledge that our members have about our natural resources and encourage them to use those. And in partnership with a grant through the Chesapeake Bay Trust, this year we offered for our team 3 different activities or educational offerings around how we can improve our environment and protect our waterways. And so one of those, we connected with Bonnie to see if there was any partner who could share how should we appropriately recycle. There was a video that Bonnie shared with me during this discussion called Plastic Wars, which really showed just how recycling isn't working for some communities. And we really wanted to share more information with our congregation about how we can do this work and do it well. And so I want to thank the partners from Baltimore Public Works for being with us today and sharing the information that they will. And thank you everyone for taking the time out of your day to participate.
Thanks so much, Pastor Melanie. Had all this time, I couldn't find that mute button, so sorry. So now I'm going to turn it over to our presenters. Is my screen will present? Oh, there we go. Before I do, I just wanted to share this as kind of a precursor for why recycling and trying to manage our trash. This is a quote from one of our pastors, Pastor Michael Martin. But this photo is a picture of what happens when recycling and our trash isn't dealt with in the right way. It all ends up in the water. So that's kind of the impetus of why we want to come here today to find out the best ways to use to treat our recycling. So with no further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our friends at the Baltimore Department of Public Works, the Bureau of Solid Waste, Office of Waste Diversion. First, we'll be hearing from Kalia Jordan, who is currently the liaison officer for DPW and has been working for the Office of Waste Diversion for 4 months. While new to the department, she brings a great deal of knowledge in both chemistry and environmental science. Before joining DPW, she was a high school teacher specializing in earth and environmental science. And then we also have Kara Murray, who is a program analyst with the Baltimore City Department of Public Works Bureau of Solid Waste. Kara Murray joined Baltimore DPW in October of 2021 and has quickly become familiar with solid waste topics and challenges for the city. Her background is in public policy, and she received her master's in public affairs, focusing on environmental policy and natural resource management from Indiana University in 2016. Kara worked with the Parks and Recreation Department of Bloomington, Indiana as a natural resources fellow and is happy to return to public service after working as a federal consultant for 3 years. Kara is developing policy initiatives within the Office of Waste Diversion, as well as pursuing grant funds, engaging with the community, and overall supporting the efforts to make solid waste more sustainable in Baltimore. So with that, I will turn it over to them. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it over to you. There you go.
Thank you, Bonnie. So let me just want to make sure that this is.
And as you're pulling that up, folks, you can feel free to put your questions in the chat if you'd like, or at the end of this, we will open it up. Since we're a small enough group, we can open it up for verbal questions as well. So go ahead, take it away.
Thank you so much, Bonnie, for that introduction. So we are from the Baltimore City Department of Public Works. We work in the Bureau of Solid Waste in our new or newly named Office of Waste Diversion. So our initiatives and goals are to divert waste in any way possible. So we work primarily with recycling, food scrap reduction, and composting. And so we're trying to get more into a zero waste future. Okay, so this is some of the information that we wanted to give out about our recycling program. So first, why is recycling even important? So we know that it reduces trash and litter. So if you go outside, you might see trash, litter sitting on the street. And when that happens and it starts to rain, just as Bonnie said, it goes onto our waterways, it starts to pollute the land. And so it's just a never ending cycle at that point. So we want to make sure that we're recycling because it improves our entire environment in Baltimore City and our region as a whole. Recycling is also important because it's going to reduce the materials that we have in our landfill. And that means we're reducing the materials that are actually incinerated. So when we're incinerating materials, we're just burning it. And that burning is going to create gases to come out. So those are greenhouse gases. So when we recycle, we're actually decreasing the amount of greenhouse gas emissions that we're putting into the atmosphere. And so greenhouse gas emissions is not something that everyone's gonna be like, oh yeah, I know exactly what that is. So when we talk about greenhouse gas emissions, this is something that is actually warming the climate, and it's gonna create a wide range of environmental and health issues. So most of these gases are carbon dioxide, methane, and they trap heat and cause the earth to actually warm up. They come straight from human activity, mainly due to the fact that we're not recycling as much as we should be. So when we don't recycle, the landfill actually fills up faster. We need to then drive our garbage further away. We need to incinerate more, and then that's going to cause an increase in those emissions. So it's going to affect all of our global and local climate at that point. And so what we wanted to make sure we let you guys know what exactly is happening to your recycling, because a lot of people have questions around that. Like, when I put my recycling out, where exactly is it going? What is being done with it? So in Baltimore City, the first thing that we do is we just ask everyone to put their recycling out on their curbside for curbside pickup. So we do have our blue recycling carts that we have placed out for all of our residents, or pushed out to all of our residents. If residents are not able to place it outside, we do have residential drop-off centers as well, where you can drop off your recycling, and that way we have that all in our facility. The next thing, or the next step, is we will load it into a packer truck. We'll fill that to capacity. We're going to take it over to our Northwest transfer station, which is an area where we're able to just house the recycling until we're able to transfer it over to another place. And it just makes it a little bit easier as we have more recycling trucks coming in. That's just like a central meeting place for them all. Once it's loaded into that truck, we actually transport it to Waste Management Recycle America Materials Recovery Facility. So the Materials Recovery Facility for short, we call it MRF. And that is in Elkridge, Maryland. It is about a 30-minute drive from the transfer station. So that's why we kind of house everything in the transfer station for a little bit first to make sure all of our recycling is there and we have enough to just then drive it over. Because we know once we're driving those things over, that also increases the greenhouse gas emissions. So we're trying to like limit as much driving as possible. We then take it to that facility, and then the facility will take out any contaminated items. So those things are removed, and we are sorting, or they sort through the commodities, so the plastic, paper, glass, anything that might be there. Contaminants that you might see, or they might see pots and pans or different types of wires, things that wouldn't necessarily be appropriate in that facility, because once we have it all, or the commodities separated, we're going to ensure that they are going to the correct vendors so that the vendors can then turn that into something else. So there we have pictures here. You can see that they are baled and then transported out. So all of those materials that we recycle, we are actually measuring that. So we do have a measurement of our recycling rate. So every year we have to report our recycling findings to the Maryland Department of the Environment, and they calculate our recycling rate. In 2021, households in Maryland actually generated about 11 million tons of waste. And we did recycle over 42%, so that's about 4.8 million tons. So it's definitely progress, but we're trying to get to a larger goal of how much we're actually recycling and how much we're actually diverting from the landfill. The state of Maryland actually requires a 35% recycling rate, which unfortunately Baltimore has never met. I think currently, or last year, we had about 28%. So we're slowly getting to that goal, but we're trying to push out more efforts to get residents to recycle more so that we're able to get up to that rate, because we know that recycling has such beneficial aspects. The report does only include residential and commercial recycling, but the businesses are not necessarily required to share the information with us, which comes with a little bit of difficulty, because there might be businesses that are actually recycling a lot more, but just not reporting it. So we're trying to push for more businesses to actually report their findings so that we're able to increase our rate. It is a lot easier for us to actually measure the single family recycling because we're actually pushing those carts out and we're actually collecting those as well. Whereas the businesses do have to ask for a private hauler for recycling. So it makes it a little bit easier for residents, not as easy for businesses. So those are things that we are working on to increase that recycling rate. So recycling is very, very easy. So we have recycling in Baltimore City as easy as 1, 2, 3. That's the motto that we use. So you are able to use any container that you would like: paper bags, cardboard boxes. You can use laundry baskets. Anything that you might have. The only exception that we have is we do not want anyone to use plastic bags. That is one of our #1 contaminants in our recycling facilities. So we want to make sure that we are not putting those into any of our recycling bins or recycling carts. Like not to even house your recycling in there. Just house it loosely in a cart, laundry basket, trash can, and label it recycling. Any of those efforts will work. You'll then fill your container with any of your approved recycling materials, so paper, cans, cardboard boxes, and then bottles as well. You'll put them all out on the curbside for curbside pickup. Baltimore City right now, we do have bi-weekly pickup, so you'll put it out on your respective day. If you are maybe generating a little bit more recycling, which is a good thing, you can always drop it off at one of our residential drop-off centers, and there's no limit for that. We have 5 that's housed around the city, and we will be showing those locations later on in the presentation. So this is how we actually recycle, okay? So we have all of our information pretty much in this visual of what we can recycle. And if you come to any of our events, we do have these visuals on like magnets and bags as well. So it's a constant reminder for you that these are the things that you should recycle and the things that you should not. Please note them, like the commonality between them is it's empty and dry. So we want your recycling to be something that is empty and dry, because that is going to cause contamination if it is not. The main things that we do not want to be in your curbside recycling is going to be plastic bags and film, any foods and liquids. So that's going to immediately contaminate it. Paper towels, napkins, tanglers, such as garden hoses, wires, and then carry out food containers. And we're going to go through all of these individually just to get a little bit more perspective of why you should not place them in your bin. But those are the main ones that we will not, that we do not allow because of the contamination process. So we're going to go through ways to prevent contamination by telling you the common materials that you should not be placing in your recycling bin. So the first one is going to be those plastic bags. And each time that I tell you guys about a material you should not be recycling, we'll give you a recycle rule and like an expert tip to kind of get you to remember these are things that I should not place in my bin. So plastic bags, that includes, you know, the regular takeout bags, which Baltimore City does have a ban on plastic bags, but if you were to have them, they still should not go into your recycling bin. And then even like chip bags, things like that. Those are flexible packaging. So they're gonna cause contamination within our actual recycling process. It also is a very loose material, so that causes the machine to actually have effects or negative effects as well. And they're made from multiple materials, meaning that they're not pure materials for us to say this is entirely made of paper, this is entirely made of plastic. They have multiple materials that are present, meaning it'll be very difficult for us to even try to send that to a vendor to even recreate it and make it into something else. Disposable cups is another thing that we do not allow. So anything that has plastic or wax coating, so your red Solo cups, those are things that we are not accepting. So those are, once again, they have multiple materials on them or different materials on them. So they are not something that we're gonna keep. And I'm gonna leave this slide up for just 2 seconds, just so if you wanna remember the pictures. I always say, remember pictures, because that will help you. Like if you have a red Solo cup, you're like, I know I cannot put this in my recycling cart. So no chip bags, no plastic bags, no red Solo cups, not even our little coffee cups, the lid as well. We're just gonna throw it in the trash, not recycling. The next 2 are like our main things that we see a lot in our recycling. And unfortunately, these are one of the main contaminants because they do contain food. So the first one is food containers. Those takeout containers and even yogurt containers are not accepted. So the carryout containers are made of paper and lined with wax. Those are definitely not accepted. Those will affect our machine. A lot of questions have come about pizza boxes, and Kara and I have gone through a lot to figure out what the actual response is for pizza boxes. We've even toured our waste management facility to make sure we know. And so pretty much pizza boxes can be accepted if they are free of any food residue or grease. And if you don't have a greasy pizza, it might not be the best pizza, but it's still something that you can recycle if there's no grease. So if you have a pizza box that might have grease on the top, no grease on the bottom, you can actually just take the lid off or take the top part off and throw the part that does not have grease in the recycling. And then the part that does have grease can go in the trash. So pizza boxes can be recycled, just free of grease, free of food. The next is clamshell packaging. So that is something that is widely used by almost everyone, but unfortunately it's not accepted for recycling due to its flimsy nature. So it's super flimsy. It's going to get tangled in our sorting machine that we use at our recycling facility. So that's why we're not going to be accepting those either. Okay, so those are the clamshell packaging that you have, you know, your blueberries, your strawberries, fruits and things like that will be in, but we're not going to be accepting those due to its effects on the machine. And once again, I like to say, take in the pictures so you remember, you know, if you see any of these are not accepted.
Kalaya, could I ask a question?
Sure.
On the top one, the larger containers, it says if they're made with paper, if they're totally plastic, is something like that recyclable?
No, we don't want any food containers at all, because even if you're trying to clean them, they most likely will have some type of food waste in them still, or they might be made of other materials, that it's not purely plastic.
And the yogurt, the large yogurt containers, even if they go through the dishwasher?
I think Kara can help with that one a little bit more of what Waste Management has told us.
All right, thank you.
The guidance we've gotten is if the mouth of the container is narrower than the body, it is accepted. If the mouth is wider or as wide as the body of the container, it is not accepted. I know the yogurt container is lots of questions around those, even if they're in a bigger tub or the single serving size. The guidance we've received from Waste Management is that those are not accepted.
Could you repeat the wider thing again?
Sure. So you think about how a water bottle tapers up towards the top and the mouth of it is more narrow than the body of the container. That's good. That means it is accepted. If the mouth is, for example, in one of these clamshell packaging tubs, that mouth of the opening is just as wide as the body of the container, that means not accepted.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kara. All right, so we will continue with some of our tips for actually recycling the correct items and the things that we actually do accept in recycling. So the first is going to be our plastic. So we're going to recycle plastics like our empty bottles, jars, and jugs by the shape. So just as Kara said, if the top is narrower than the bottom, it's something that is going to be accepted. And if you see on our pictures here with our detergent bottles, the Pepsi bottle, that milk carton, you will see that they are all things that have a narrower top than the bottom. So use that as a rule of thumb as well. We want to make it clear that resin codes don't indicate recyclability, and resin codes are actually that small little, like it almost looks like a recycling sign. It's like a triangle that's there. It's like those floating arrows, and they normally have a number that's inside. Those are actually made from different companies, and it does not. It tells you what type of plastic it is based on the number, but it does not indicate recyclability. So I always say to make sure you are checking to see what is actually accepted and what is not, because those numbers tend to confuse some people. So one quick tip or one quick fact about recycling our plastic bottles is that if we recycle one plastic bottle, it's going to save enough energy to power about a 60-watt light bulb for 30 hours. Okay, so recycling that one plastic bottle is going to do that much just for one light bulb. I want to make sure that that everyone understands the importance of recyclability, or the importance of recycling, not just for the environment, but for household use, or for how it is going to benefit everyone as a whole. So the next is going to be our cans. So we do recycle aluminum and steel cans, even empty aerosol cans that might have hairspray or like the room deodorizers, as long as they are fully out, like empty and dry, they are accepted. So that is a positive thing for your recycling of cans, because I know everyone has hairspray and, you know, Lysol and things like that at home. So those can also be recycled. And the most recycled item in the United States is actually aluminum beverage cans. So our Cokes and our Pepsis and Mountain Dews and everything like that. Pop them out of your cozy, throw them in the recycling when you're finished with them. Okay, so plastic and cans. The next two that we'll look at is going to be paper and glass. So paper, the main thing with paper, it can be any type of color. It can be a newspaper, be a magazine. Those are all good to recycle. Our only issue with paper is we will not accept it if it is wet, like soiled paper, because now it's contaminated. So we want to ensure that it's just a dry paper that can just go right in the bin. So recycling 1 ton of paper actually saves 17 mature trees. And this is actually a fact that Kara and I just found out not too long ago as well. We were looking at like common facts, and that was something that was very interesting to us. It's just 1 ton of paper, which is something that we collect in the city easily, is going to save that many trees. And we actually have our shred events. So in that way, we know people are then using or recycling their paper so that they can be shredded. So 1 ton of paper sounds like a lot, which it is a lot, but the fact that it saves 17 trees is definitely a great thing.
And just to add on to that, for curbside recycling, you should not be putting your shredded paper in there.
Right.
But we do have shred events where you can take paper to be shredded. I think some folks also take their paper to like office supply stores, like Office Max, to have their paper shredded, and they recycle it there. But the shredded household paper should not go in curbside recycling.
Correct. Yep. We have those shred events for you to save your paper and we shred it. But if it is curbside, yes, have the full paper. We do not accept any like smaller ripped up pieces of paper because then it's too flimsy for us to go through the machine. The next is going to be our glass. So glass bottles, similar to the plastic bottles with the narrow top, is accepted. That is something that we're going to accept in our curbside. Any type of broken glass, mirrors, light bulbs, those things should not be in your curbside recycling. Those are things that either might need to go to a household hazardous waste facility, or they might be things that we're not able to accept because it's broken. The good thing about glass, though, is as a whole, like a glass bottle, it's going to be 100% recyclable. It's never going to be something that loses its quality or its purity. So it can just continue to be recycled over and over and over again. Next one is going to be our cartons, which include cardboard. So flatten your cardboard to make more room for any materials that you might be placing in your recycling. And cardboard is actually the easiest thing for you to actually create or remake for us. So it only takes about 75% of the energy to recycle or to make new cardboard just by you recycling it. So putting recycling cardboard in your curbside drop off, or if you want to take it off to the residential drop off centers, that is the main way that we can kind of get to new cardboard. So cardboard, we don't have many aspects of cardboard or any like discrepancies with cardboard. That's like one of our main things. I think the only thing is just make sure, once again, empty and dry, because some of them are like milk cartons, things like that. So we talked about a lot of recycling as far as plastic, our cartons, our glass, and now we're going to look at some other types of recycling that we do around the city. And so that is going to include actual food recycling with our food scrap drop-off locations, and then durable medical equipment recycling. So with our food scrap drop-off locations, we have 7 of them around the city. 5 of them are the residential drop-off centers. and 2 of them at the bottom are the farmers markets that are around the city. So one is on 32nd Street, and then the other one is right under the JFX bridge. And you're able to bring any types of fruits, vegetables, cooked pasta, cooked rice, things like that. You're able to bring those in. And we partnered with the NRDC, so the Natural Resources Defense Council. And through this partnership, the materials or the food that you bring in will go to different farms that will then compost the materials, or they might give it to hogs or pigs to feed them. So that way it's not just being thrown in your trash and then once again in the landfill. So food is actually one of the #1 things in our landfill. And if there's a way for us to divert that, we want to do that. So that's why we have all of these drop-off centers for you to bring that. There are some unaccepted materials that are here listed. So plastic bags, dairy, meat, those types of things are not accepted. We are looking for more natural ingredients that are listed, and everything that's here is also on our website. And so if you had any questions around what can I or can I not recycle, and you want to go in, or not what I can or cannot bring for the food scrap drop-off, you can look those up right before you go to ensure that you're bringing the correct material. The next one that we have is our durable medical equipment. So this is just an opportunity for anyone that might have wheelchairs, power chairs, scooters, hospital beds. Those types of materials can be brought to 2 of our locations. So Quarantine Road Landfill and the Northwest Transfer Station. You can bring those materials with you. Once they're donated, they are sanitized, they're repaired, and then they're given to adults and children to improve mobility. So it's not something that is just going to be sitting around the house, or it's not something that might just be placed in the trash. This is something that can actually go to a better cause and help others that might need that type of equipment. So we have talked about a lot with recycling. We've talked about our main recycling for curbside pickup. We've talked about our food scraps. We talked about our durable medical equipment. And we thank you all for taking your time out to participate in this workshop. And we thank you for being recycling ambassadors. We did provide our information. So Kara and I do have our email addresses present, as well as the email address that we both monitor, which is recycling@baltimorecity.gov. So if you had any additional questions after this presentation, we will be more than happy to help you. I think at this time, if you do have more questions between Kara and myself, we will be answering those questions for you.
Thank you so much. That was great. And we did get quite a few questions in the chat, so I will take them from the top and we'll see how many we can get through here. So the first one came in is, how much of our garbage is incinerated versus going to a landfill?
So our landfill, Quarantine Road landfill, is on the southern tip of Baltimore City. And the long and short of it is it's running out of space. Within about 7 years, it will be too full to accept more material. So the residential waste from curbside that we pick up, most of that is incinerated before the ash is disposed into the landfill. That reduces about 90% of the volume and gives us a better chance at extending the life of the landfill for our residential use. We are working on expanding the landfill to have more room for disposal. But the more that we can divert from that stream, which is our main option for disposal, the better in terms of just air quality, land use, and resource management.
Great, thank you. Where can an apartment dweller in 21229 with no car take the recycling?
So I looked up that zip code when I saw that question come in. It looks like that's Southwest Baltimore. So basically, apartment buildings in the state of Maryland are required by law to provide recycling to their residents. A lot of them are lax in that. I can recommend someone in the Maryland Department of the Environment that you could email to try and get them to reach out to your apartment complex. But without a mode of transportation, I don't know, I have a resource for you to get your recycling somewhere if your apartment complex isn't providing the service they're supposed to. There are some drop-off sites that aren't city sites that are close to that area. We've set up some like interim drop-off sites. There's one on Edmondson Ave, and there's one in more West Baltimore, Gilmore Street. And then depending on which yard you're closer to, there's one in Cherry Hill at Reedbird Ave, and then our Sisson Street location is probably our most popular Citizens Convenience Center.
Bonnie?
Yeah, go ahead, Drew. I see your hand. Yep.
That was my question. My friend has no car, and if you don't have a car, then you're kind of stuck. How can she access the information for these drop-off centers? Are they on the website?
Yes. If
Which
wanna email
website?
us, if you can't find them, we'll give you a list. Because
maybe
our
that would be
website is
great.
going through a bit of a redevelopment because we know it's not awesome.
So maybe if one of you
Thank you.
could put in the chat the link to the website, that would be great.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and put that in the chat for you.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, our next question is from Mary. She wants to know, let me make sure I'm going in order. So so plastic with the number 3 through 6 are plastics that cannot be recycled. Is that correct?
So we, as Kalia mentioned, really don't guide people to go buy the resin codes on the materials. They are created by the industry to lead people to believe that their materials are more acceptable for recycling than they truly are, when plastics are one of the lowest revenue producing commodities as part of the recycling market. So we really, in terms of plastic, just ask folks to stick to those visuals we provided. And think about more rigid plastics that come in forms of the bottles, jugs, and those tapered containers are the most acceptable and most sellable in terms of putting them into the recycling commodities market.
Great, thanks. If Maryland recycles 48% of what's in the recycling bins, what happens to the other 52%?
I guess it just means contaminated material. So we do have a big issue with contamination getting into our stream, since there's all sorts of materials out there and such a low amount of them are acceptable for our recycling. Contaminated material does get baled by the materials recovery facility and is disposed of in a landfill or incinerator.
Okay. Have you considered going back to the old time recycling where paper, metal, and glass all went to separate containers, not jumbled together? I guess what's the benefits of one single stream versus having people separate it?
Yeah, there is actually there's some peer-reviewed paper out there that talks about some of the difference between source reduction versus single stream. And there are definitely some more benefits to source separated recycling models than there are single stream. I think where we are in Baltimore now is, given our infrastructure and capabilities, single stream might be the best option. But in terms of collecting the best material for sale and recycling, the source separation is probably an improvement. But I think there's just benefits on use of system given where we are in Baltimore now.
Great. I see Peggy has her hand raised, so we'll go to you, Peggy. Go ahead. You can unmute yourself. There
Thank
go.
you. So I have found this extremely helpful that you give out. And I was wondering, could you mail a whole stack of flyers or these for congregations that we could pass out?
Yeah, we have an updated version of that that we do provide in bulk. I've dropped some off at some retirement communities in the past, so that would be okay. We'll just print out a bunch and we'll give it to you.
And also the bags that you referenced, do you have a supply of those, or can we pick them up somewhere? I think I did that a couple years ago and it was very beneficial, and got a lot of the poor that we serve to use them as opposed to plastic bags and other kind of things. So do you still have a supply of those that we could possibly pick up?
We do, probably a fewer number than we can just print out flyers, but we could probably get a certain number of them and see how many we can get over to you.
You want me
Peggy,
to?
I would say to email us how many you might need, and then we can assess how many we can probably get out to you guys.
Yeah,
All right,
maybe
and-
put your email addresses in the chat, and that way they'll have ready access to it. Yeah.
I'll go ahead and do that.
I wrote it down too.
Oh, you did.
And I still though get confused about things. I love what you said about the narrow opening at the top. That was very helpful. You know, plastic cups are recyclable, but not the red ones, but plastic cups have a wider opening at the top. So I still am a little confused about plastic cups, I guess.
Plastic cups, not just the red ones. So all plastic cups would be a no, a not acceptable for our waste stream.
That's been taken off your acceptable item.
Yeah, it's been updated. Mhm.
Yep.
Okay,
That's
and
why
on
she wants to get to the updated ones.
Yeah.
And on the
Things are
back,
constantly changing. Right.
I know, it's hard to keep up with.
and on the
Yeah.
back, it also said bottles, jars, containers with the symbols 1 through 7 on the bottom. And then it has in parentheses, narrow neck, wide mouth, and screw top example, and it gave examples. You might want to include the word only narrow neck, but then it says wide mouth. So I mean, it's confusing. So when you read that, you might think, oh yeah, 1 through 7. Well, if I can narrow neck, wide mouth, I can do that. So
Yeah.
So I
Peggy,
really-
we'll make sure we'll get you an updated version, and we'll probably add that insert as well. That would probably be helpful for a lot of people, but we'll definitely get you an updated version that I think will be beneficial for you guys to use.
that would be one. And one last
Thank you.
question. Do you
Okay.
still have, do you have people that would come to congregations to kind of give a presentation to a larger group or not? I know staffing is tough, but.
Well, that's one of the reasons why we're recording today's session. So
Okay.
we will make this recording available to you, and that way we can help our friends at the city maximize their time. Like working on the weekends is really hard on staff. So
Right.
that was one of the impetuses for us to pull this together and then record it. And we will be downloading this. Someone did ask that they missed the beginning. This will be downloaded, and we will have it saved on the IPC website. So you'll be able to use that to share with your congregation.
Wonderful. I thank you so much. It was very beneficial. And thank you also, Bonnie, for pulling it together.
No problem, Peggy. Debbie, I see your hand, but Kathy raised hers first. So I'm going to go to Kathy, and then we'll come to you, Debbie, okay?
Okay.
All right.
First, thank
Go
you
ahead,
so
Kat.
much. This has been very informative. Just thank you. But
Thanks.
again, on the handout. So I really liked the pictures you had today, you know, in the slide. Is that what the new handout is? Because that's what we want, I think. I just want to make sure. Okay. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so I promised, where'd you go? Debbie's next, and then Rita, I'll let you go. Go ahead, Debbie.
Hey, Kathy, you had said something. I have always wondered, if people still put collect their things in large plastic bags, and now put them into the containers, and people pick them up. So how is anybody ever going to learn that they aren't? At least my understanding is that if they're in plastic bags, it fouls everything up, and they just end up in the landfill.
Yes, that is true. Leadership at the Department of Public Works would rather collect the material than not, and cause issues with miscollection service requests and things related to service provisions. We did pilot oops tags on some of our recycling routes as part of our recycling partnership grant program, but never ended up not collecting the material. It was just kind of an informative tagging pilot that we did. But we try to use education as our main tool to prevent the use of bagging of recyclables, part of our Know What to Throw campaign. But for a variety of service provision reasons, they'll just pick it up and it'll be part of the stream.
When during the pandemic, actually, when I took it down to Sisson Street, I noticed that if people thought they were in plastic, the guys emptied it into the machine. The other question I had was, that's all right. I can't remember now what it was.
All right, well, keep thinking on it, Debbie.
What? Which of these email addresses are we supposed to use to see the beginning?
I will be sending you a recording of it.
To everyone, or how would we
everyone that registered for the event will receive a recording.
Right. Okay.
It will take me a couple of days to download it and make sure that we have it edited where we need to, and then I'll send it out to you. And then we will also house it on our website as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, and I'll give you the link to that too. Rita, you had a question. You have to unmute yourself, Rita. I can't do it. There you go.
Sorry. I look at the pictures and I think that's a great way of telling what's recyclable or not. It's pictures speak more than words, like they say. But one thing is confusing. On all the pictures, they show it with the lids on, and like a bottle of, a paper container of milk has a plastic lid, and they always show in the pictures with the lid on, but the lid is made out of plastic. And that happens many times. Glass jars, the lids are often made of metal. And you had said that they're not supposed to have more than one material together, and yet the pictures show that all the time. And are the pictures correct?
I was actually just thinking about that while we were going through this presentation. So we like to keep like with like material. So if it's a glass jar, you would separate it from its lid, the metal lid. And if it's a plastic bottle, you can keep the plastic lid on, that's like with like. And then those wax milk cartons, you would separate it from its lid as well.
Kombucha bottles.
I think it's really critical that you change the pictures. You tell everybody to use the pictures, and that's what I've been going by. And I think it's wonderful that you started doing pictures, because I finally got an answer to what I thought was my question. And now I just find out that the answer is not true on the pictures. I think you got to change that. That's really important, because every container has a lid. And even if they're both plastic, sometimes they're very different kinds of plastic. And I think that causes problems too, from what I understand. A lot of times the lid is like a hard kind of plastic and the bottle's flimsy.
Yeah, it is a constant moving parts, trying to keep up with exactly what we can send to the recycling facility. But we do our best to try and make sure everyone has the most up-to-date info.
Okay, well, the little magnets for the refrigerator are very confusing. So
Time for an update. I do have a question in the chat. It says, I've heard that there are residential areas where recycling is required to be bagged because it's picked up from an alley where the trucks can't fit through. Is that correct?
Not as far as I know.
Not as far as you know.
No, we do not accept recycling that is bagged in plastic bags.
And paper bags are okay? Paper bags are okay. All right, Debbie, you have one more?
That was the only, I just had a comment about the composting. we did this in Massachusetts, and now here there's a group called Compost Crew. You have to pay for it, but they take meat and fish and bones and everything, and they come and pick it up. There are other cities that actually do this as part of the city thing. I doubt if that's going to happen in Baltimore. But I think Compost Crew is worth knowing if you're willing to pay for it. But anyway, they take everything, or not everything. They don't take dead animals or food bags or anything. But I actually composted my old 100% cotton graduate nursing uniform when I realized I was never going to fit in it again. So they take cotton and they don't take plastic or polyester, but anyway, it's worth knowing, and it's just you Google Compost Crew.
Yeah, Compost Crew is our partner for our food scrap drop-off sites. So they're the company that picks up the bins that we have at our convenience centers. And they're doing a lot of great work in the DMV area, and funding limited. We were interested in doing some more projects with them.
Right. That's wonderful. I think I've covered all the questions that were in the chat. So we're down to the last few minutes. Is there anyone else who has a question that is unanswered? If not, I'd love to thank Kalia and Kara for being our guest speakers, and to Pastor Melanie and Elevation Ministries for being the impetus to pull us all together. And now that this is the wonderful part of Zoom, is that now it's recorded for all posterity, or until they change what's going to be recycled, and then we'll have to do it all over again. So we'll wait for the city to let us know when the rules change, and then we'll have to do it again, or just send out an update. So I don't know, Rita, did you have another question, or is your hand just still raised from before?
Yeah, no, another question. It just occurred to me that there used to be a limit on the size of the plastic container being recycled. Like if you had a little tiny medicine bottle or eyedropper or something, you couldn't recycle it. Well, all these lids that are made out of plastic are going to be too small if that rule still applies. Do we know anything about size?
I guess I would have to get some more clarification from our recycling facility on that. But I think if you have those little medicine bottles with the lids on, I think that's fine. The teeny tiny eyedropper plastic containers, I would guess that's okay, but I guess we would have to ask. I would say the rule of thumb is when in doubt, throw it out, which stinks. But it's what the best rule we have for preventing contamination.
Okay, and those lids?
The lids, the small ones, as individuals, I would say throw those away.
Okay, thank you.
I have quick things just to enter on. Now I put my garbage in a compost bag and put that in, figuring if worse comes to worse, at least if in the wherever it is that we do it, that will allow whatever can break down to break down, and it won't sit in plastic forever. And so, and you can buy those too.
Great. Well, yes. Well, thank you all for spending your mid-morning on this gorgeous day. So hope you'll get to go outside and enjoy the beautiful weather. Again, thank you to Kara and Kalia for joining us today. Really appreciate that. And with that, I will say goodbye and look for in your inbox. I will send out a link to the recording, hopefully before the end of the week. So thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.